What's up, everybody? It's the Bipolar Prophet, and welcome back to Old Ridge Farm in Farming Simulator 15. If you remember from the really? Can I never just get through the intro? Last episode. We sprayed all our fields. We put down some PK, some NPK, and some herbicide. And I said I had meadows to bale. So we're down here at the storage meadow, what I call the storage meadow. Because this used to be my old storage yard down here. You may notice some things are missing. The buildings, specifically the sheds, they were old, they were kind of worn out, they were leaky, they were starting to come down. They were a bit of an eyesore, so over the winter I had them taken down. Now there's been some interesting sort of inquiries as to this area, as to this land, that I'm not really ready to talk about just yet, but keep your eye out for that anyway. So, but we have to bale this stuff up. It's been sitting here now for about a day. It's pretty dry. It was really wet down here, so I wanted to let it sit for an extra day and dry out. But it's pretty good now, so we're going to go ahead and get this baled up, hopefully. And hopefully everything will go to plan. Get that turned on, and of course, immediately we're ready to go with a bale. So, okay, not a problem. Would like to get some cruise control going here, so I only have one thing to deal with at a time. Down here using my new favorite setup for baling, my front windrower and my baler. This deal works really well. I like it, so. And like I've said, before, it's a one-pass system, so I don't have to really mess with it too much. As long as I keep my eye on the bales, which I never seem to do. And make sure I keep this on this so I can spit out the bale. There we go. And back to work we go. Should get a few bales off this field. It wasn't in great shape because this is another one of the council meadows that we've only got to use now for just about 6 months. So still sort of working on getting these back up to maximum production. It wasn't too bad, but it wasn't great. So we should get a few bales. Again, I'm more concerned about this year about getting everything back up to where it's supposed to be. The drought is pretty much over now. For the most part. So we should be able to, if we're very lucky, get everything back up to maximum production, get the soil levels right, get the acidity right, get the nutrient levels right, and not really have an issue anymore from this point forward. Assuming that the rain keeps falling, and we don't have any more, weird weather, any more droughts or anything like that. So. Again, already you can see, we've been around, 3/4 of the field now, and we don't have a bale yet. And I expected that, I knew that was going to happen. I will be cutting and baling all the meadows that I have access to this year, just because I'm going to need the grass. So, I can't really afford to not cut them all. I am even going to go cut Shawnee's meadows, so, which are going to require some maintenance because they haven't been worked in quite a while. So. Like I said, I need all the grass I can get. Now, to avoid making I'm going to have to make a sharp turn here, which is going to make this thing miss some, but not much I can do about it. It is a fair sight easier to do this now without the buildings in the way, too. I never used this area. I wasn't crazy about the mixed feeder. I didn't need the extra storage, So, this stuff just kind of sat here for a long time, and it wasn't in great shape to begin with. So, the sheds were, they were old and they were just wood on block, So the blocks were starting to fall apart a little bit. The wood was kind of rotten. The roofs were kind of leaky. And I just, it just didn't make sense for me to keep them up. Plus to pay taxes on, on an improved building. So I didn't want to spend the money to sort of refurbish them and everything. Better just to tear them down, in my opinion. Yep, these meadows are not. In fact, if I bring up soil mod here, we'll be able to see exactly what we're looking at here. Yeah, see, I mean, the PK isn't bad, the soil acidity isn't bad, but the N, and grass likes N, so, trying to keep the N up in these. Obviously, I am going to slurry these after I'm done with them and after I pick up the bales and everything, so it'd be nice to get more than one bale on a go-around, right? But, okay, again, there's not a lot I can do about that, so I can only, go forward, try to pick up, get the grass in better shape. Sitting like this for a long time, which it did, it sat for 2 years that we couldn't use it. It really, the grass almost goes back to a feral state, to a natural state, right? Which is not fantastic for food, to provide, fodder for your animals with. So now it's just rebuilding again. Now it's, fighting the soil, fighting the grass, fighting the acidity levels and everything, which isn't bad. The soil moisture is pretty good. But everything else is a bit of a struggle. So with absolutely no end in the grass, you can just imagine the yields are not going to be great. But we'll keep working on them. So keep blasting them with slurry, keep putting down fertilizer if I need to. Whatever I need to do with these meadows, I'm going to do because I need the grass. There's no way around it. Now that we have, full and continuous access to the meadows again, I shouldn't need to plant any more grass. I shouldn't need to turn any of my fields into grass, which is what I was looking at having to do before Justin found out, that the meadows were being held from us illegally. So I've had a couple of comments about people saying, hey, can you maybe get some, some sort of, payment for that, Probably the problem is that because if you sort of break it down to what it cost us to take steps to make sure that we could still feed our animals without using this grass, for the seed, for the land use, for the the labor and everything else that we'd all be entitled to, obviously, and there'd be a lot of us entitled to it. Unfortunately, we had a discussion down the pub. We all sort of got together and talked about it, and we sort of came to the conclusion that, and it was Mike that really sort of steered us in this direction, that if we did try to sue the council and ultimately the parish, we could probably bankrupt the parish with the amount of money they'd have to pay us back. And having done that, they would have to raise taxes to sort of make that money back. So we'd be hurting ourselves in the long run. So we just decided that, okay, you know what? We're going to let it go. We made our feelings about the situation well known, and we're going to let it go. And now we know that, thanks to Justin, we know that the council in this parish cannot take away our rights to use this grass ever again. So they better not try again, because then we might end up having to sue. But for right now, we're just going to let it go for the good of the parish, for the good of the people in the parish and everything, and for our own good, ultimately. And we're all sort of, it's funny because we all got together down the pub, and we had to talk and everything. And we're all really rooting for Mike. Obviously, everybody who can vote will vote for Mike, when he runs for the district council to unseat the Crawford Browns. And that should eliminate a lot of the silliness that we've had to deal with over the last few years. And, of course, the people who've been in this area for a long time have had to deal with a lot more of it than I have. But, once we get Mike in a seat on the district council, we should be good. Having a farmer on the council would be very nice, because obviously Mike knows what needs to be done. Mike knows what needs to happen around here. Mike knows what, what we go through and everything, and to not stop us, from doing certain things and everything else, as long as we're following the laws and all that, which all of us do. The Crawford Browns are just greedy. They're money hungry. They're power hungry, They don't like farming, and they especially don't like it since their son is a farmer, I thought after the wedding that some of that would have kind of turned around, but it didn't. They're still anti-farmer. They'd still much rather see, expensive houses go on all these fields, which is too bad because, listen, this is an agricultural area. This is, the heritage of this area is agricultural. Why would you mess with that, But they want to, and we just have to keep fighting them. Just not going to get very many bales off this field. Oh, well, okay. Very good. We'll get what we can. Get them off. Get this slurried. Won't need any PK. Lots of PK, but the grass was so starved of N for so many years, well, for the, almost 3 years that we couldn't use the meadows, that there's no sort of, reservoir of N, as it were, for the grass to take from. So it took all the N that it could, and now it still needs more. So we need to get the levels back to a balance so that there's always some, N in the soil for the grass to take, so it doesn't just wipe it out. PK is not so much of an issue for grass. Grass really needs N. Grass needs N. That's where you get the green from. That's where you get the maximum, yield from. The maximum food value for your animals is through the N. And there just isn't any for it to draw from. At least it's sunny. You know, it's funny. You can't really win, right? You're complaining, well, I'm complaining, oh, we didn't have enough rain and blah, 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 blah. But then, I was like, oh, I hope it doesn't rain while I have, hay out in the fields, out in the meadows, because that would just be a disaster, right? Having to let it sit for another day and, and then get wet again. And that's never good for it. Once you dry it, you want to get it up, get it baled, you don't want to let it get wet again and then try to dry it again, because that just breaks down the volume of it. It could actually start to decay. And once that starts, then your bales are just not good. So, and I have too many animals to feed to be giving them sub-quality food. So, excuse me, coffee burp. It's nice to be able to turn around there without that building being in the way. It's funny, the people who dug up the old road that separated the home fields and the road that separated fields 5 and 6, when I did those, came down and knocked this stuff down for nothing. They were like, listen, they're like, you've been a good customer of ours. You always call us when you need something. You're decent. You pay us. We'll take all the materials and stuff as payment. I was like, well, absolutely. That saved me probably $6 or $7 grand. It was only a couple of sheds that needed to come down anyway, but probably saved me $7 grand. Worth of work. So I was pretty impressed with that, and I will definitely call them again. I've been nothing but impressed with those people. So just like the steel building people too. I've had quite a few steel buildings put up on the farm since I've been here, and they've been awesome to me too. Always give me a discount. Always, very courteous. Come down, do the work. Get it done on time. Don't screw around or anything like that. Just very impressed with everybody that I've dealt with in this area. Bales. I still have bales down the dairy I have to put away. But, again, not that many, so it's not really a crisis at the moment. That is one thing now about this meadow, being with no buildings in the way, where I can just turn around. And that's when this thing, the ELO, the front windrow, is at its happiest. When I can just make it go up and down a straight line. That's kind of a tight turn for the drawbar in the PTO BP. This thing does its best work going in straight lines, as you would expect. So, I saw a video yesterday, or no, yesterday. I tend to watch farming videos, right? Like everybody else, I like farming videos. I'm a farmer, so I like to watch and see what other people are doing and whatnot. I saw a cool thing, and I'm not sure where the video was from. It might have been Germany. That there was a piece of equipment, and I hadn't seen this before, which is weird. Normally I try to keep up with equipment, and Chad definitely, lets me know whenever there's new equipment out. Where it's an attachment to a baler, where you would actually put this setup, this front windrower, on the baler itself, on the drawbar of the baler, and it would row this stuff up right in front of the baler, right? And then, of course, you can always, lift the pickup of the baler and use it as a regular rake, too. I mean, that's really a one-pass system, right? You could actually almost, if you were slick enough, mow in the front and then pick it up in the back, right? But, of course, where you have to make hay, you'd have to dry it out anyway, so. But I thought that was kind of cool. At the moment, from what it looks like, it's only available for square balers because they have a longer drawbar, and they're a little heavier, and they can take the weight of this thing. The front windrower isn't heavy particularly, but it's heavy enough that I don't know that I'd want to hang it on this, And I don't think they make an adapter, an attachment point for this setup for a round baler, because as you can see, the drawbar in a round baler is not very long, and you need a certain amount of width and length to attach this thing to. So I think I'll stick with this. I don't really have any interest in going to square bales. I would only go to square bales for straw probably. But again, I end up having to run off to other farms to buy straw anyway. So Again, I've got barley and wheat in the fields this year. Again, mostly just for straw. The revenue that it brings in is okay, but it isn't fantastic. Because I just don't have the acreage. Oh, I kind of nailed myself here with a bale right in the way. Well, you know what we could do? We could start going this way if I could see what I'm doing. So I can kind of avoid that bale. One thing you don't want to do is get a bale stuck in this windrower, because it will shred the bale as far as it can go, and then it'll just jam up solid. And then it's an hour and a half of work trying to get the twine and everything out of the windrower. So no fun whatsoever. And how do I know that? Trust me, I've done it. Oh, good. Excellent. I was hoping it was going to give me a bale before I had to turn. Perfect. The one time it actually worked out just the way it should. Every so often you get lucky. So stay tuned with what may happen in this area over here. You guys remember when I first came to this farm, there were silage pits over here. They were not in fantastic shape. They were leaky, and the sides were kind of worn out. And they would have needed a lot of work to get them back up so that I could use them. I didn't need them. So those came down. The sheds obviously came down over the winter. And I've had a couple of inquiries about this area. But I can't talk about it yet because we're still sort of in the planning phase, or actually still in the just talking about it phase. But as soon as I have some more definitive news, I will let you guys know. Turn, don't catch this bale. Whew. Again, that is the last thing you want to do. Oh. That would be me on the phone calling up Phil, who's down, I think he's down checking all the oil and the hydraulic fluid and everything on the tractors, on the case and on the Puma and on the Kloss. So I'd be calling him going, all right, bring some wrenches, bring some cutters, because we got to extract the bale from the windrower again. And that would get me the face. When I did it the last time and I called him and I said, listen, I need your help. And he was like, what'd you do? And I told him, and he was like, oh, really? And I swear I heard about it for a week afterwards, because it's just a job. And luckily I didn't break the windrower because, again, I don't want to have to buy another one. Don't want to have to send this off to Chad. I need this. This thing gets used a lot, as you would expect, so. Gonna have to get the baler down to Chad. Either that or I'll just buy the parts. I want to change all the tines on the pickup this year, so probably just order the parts from him and I'll do it myself. Me and Phil will hopefully bang that out after harvest day, after everything's baled up and everything. So they get worn out after a while. They drag against the ground and everything, and occasionally you'll kick a rock through it or whatever. I try real hard not to do that, but sometimes it happens. So I've got a couple of bent ones and stuff. I can live with it for now, but I want to get it done after harvest this year, after everything's baled up. So, I've had this baler for, almost 4 years now, so. I think I got a bearing going in the knot or two because it's making a little bit of a squeak. So, again, this stuff, like I said, this gets used a lot, so it needs maintenance. So, gonna have to take a look at that. Stuff I can do myself, because obviously I could just go over to Chad, go over to the service department and say, I need this and this and this, and order it. And if I can do it myself, absolutely. I tend not to mess with the tractors because they're all under some sort of service plan. But the balers, the plow, the cultivators, things like that, I can do that stuff myself. I can do all the maintenance on that myself. I just have to order the parts, so it just makes sense for me to do it. Can we just drive all over this meadow, BP, and just, compact it down as much as possible? So we've cut Meadow 8 as well. I think what I'll do is I'll go over to Meadow 8 and get that baled up. And then in the next episode, we'll pick up all the bales, get them back to the dairy, get them stacked up. you know, again, trying to keep with the get one thing done per episode sort of routine that I'm in. You know, it's not always going to work out that way because sometimes, you know, especially during harvest, as you guys know, harvest, they're always multi-parts, you know, because harvest takes a while. Even though I don't have a ton of acreage, I have enough that, you know, it takes a little while, so. I would just love to see this meadow full of bales, and I swear next season that's the way it's going to be. Whatever it takes to get these meadows back up again. You know, and again, that's, you know, and that's the bad part is that because they were fallow for so long, they weren't maintained for so long, you know, now it's costing us a ton of money to get them back up to where they should be. You know, but, I mean, what can you do? You really can't do anything about it, unfortunately, so. Let's see. We're going down the road, so I need to fold all this stuff up. How many bales did we get? 1, 2, 3. Really, did we only 4, 5? 5 bales? Oh, that's just not great at all, is it? Okay, well, stop whining about it and fix it, I guess. Spend my own money. I swear I want to send the fertilizer bill to the council. And be like, well, this is on you. You guys pay for this. Find the exit. Go up to Meadow 8, and we'll get that baled up. And then, like I said, in the next episode, we'll pick up all the bales. One thing about this thing, about this windrower is it's not the best thing to go down the road with because it sticks up kind of high, as you can see. So, hold on, guys. I will be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Had to answer the phone. Go figure, right? Phone rings, middle of a recording. What are you going to do? Now I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, I was talking about taking this thing down the road. Yeah, it sits up a little high, as you can see, you know, but it's not awful. You just got to be careful of these trees. I tend to run down the middle of the road, so which always makes the people coming down the other side of the road really happy with me, you know. But one good thing about this area is everybody's used to it. You know, everybody's used to the farmers. They're used to us coming down the road with big equipment and, you know, and all this other stuff. So I don't want to catch this thing on a tree and, you know, rip the 3-point off the front of the tractor. So because 3-points are very expensive. It's probably $6,000 or $7,000 for a 3-point on this because it's not just the linkage, you know, it's the hoses and everything else. So, you know, depending on what you bend or what you break, the arms aren't awful to replace, you know, a couple $100. But if you break a hose or if you break a, you know, a remote or any of that, then you're looking at big money. So, and you're looking at downtime while you send it over to Chad to have him fix it. Can't afford to be without a tractor. Need all 3 of them. You know, I wish the council would do something about these guys parking on the sidewalk. No, I get it. They probably don't have anywhere else to park, you know what I mean? It's just sometimes it's a bit of a pain, you know. If you come through here with something too wide, you got to be really careful because if I smash into one of these guys' cars, that's on me, and that comes out of my insurance. So, and I cannot have that. Why am I getting so much lag right here? What's going on with that? It's interesting. You want to actually go to your meadows, though. I'm going the wrong way. I need to go this way. I was going to go straight, and I'm like, no, that's not right. Okay, which one did we cut? Did we cut? We cut 8, right? We cut intended 8, which would be the one up there. Yes, okay. I don't know. Phil kind of did this on his own. He was like, you know what? I'm not waiting for you anymore. He says, I'm cutting these meadows. Okay. So, very good. And then I was like, all right, well, can you not get too far ahead of me? Because I don't want this stuff sitting here in case it rains or whatever, you know? So, do me a favor and go check all the oil and hydraulic fluids and the pressures and everything on all the tractors. So, yep, here we go. Meadow 8. That's what I figured. Okay. Now, turn off the beacons for now. Get this unfolded. Get this unfolded. Get it lowered. Might as well turn it on so I don't forget. Get this lowered and turned on. Switch back to this so I can... And off we go. So you can see this field is in much better shape. It is slightly alkaline, but I'm not going to mess with that because alkalinity has just been an issue this whole year so far. Mostly, I believe, because of the drought, and that's what Nick has told me too. He thinks the drought has been the problem. So you can see, I mean, already that, you know, even because of the drought, because the soil's so dry, that the grass is just taking every bit of N out of it. And these meadows were obviously maintained. These are mine. I own them, you know. So even with me trying to take care of them, the N has just been completely depleted out of these meadows, which of course is once again going to affect the yield. Come down and slurry these again too. Had a tree come down over here, or part of a tree come down. Oh, no, don't catch that. Come down because of the wind we had not too long ago, so I need to come down and clear that up. Chop it up for firewood, I guess, for my stove. Why not? Yeah, see, the end's spotty. The edges of the field tend to not be as good as the middle anyway, especially with this because I have to be careful how I spray, how I spread slurry because I'm right next to houses and everything. I'm right next to the church, you know. I certainly don't want to get any runoff going over there. So the edge of the field, especially this meadow, tends to be a little less good. Yeah, is that a word? I guess it is, right? It tends to be less good than the middle. The alkalinity is just the drought, and hopefully that will all sort of work itself out now that we seem to be back into a more regular rain pattern, now that there's more water available to the grass in the ground. So hopefully we can get that all straightened out. Keep an eye on this. Nope, forward. Well, that's two. 2 is better than 1. That's the way I look at that. I'd like to get 6 bales off this field. If I could get 6 bales off each one of these meadows, again, these meadows aren't huge, so any more than that, even at perfect conditions, is really unrealistic. I think 6 a meadow on each one of these would be perfect. I'd like to get 10 or 12, 15 off the storage meadow, and off the pig and beef meadow. So. But again, we're sort of in a rebuilding phase with those right now. So again, it's going to be, another year before they really get to where they should be. Now, to keep my windrower out of the hedge, I kind of have to make 2 headlands on this. And that means making a couple of sharp turns, which means the baler's going to miss some stuff. But that's okay. We can always catch that on the up and downs. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to get 6 bales. It's just the N. The N is just, the N uptake is, I don't know if it's N retention that we're having an issue with, or if look, it's 0. It's killing me. I don't know. Apparently the uptake is becoming a problem. Maybe the root structure of this grass is such that it can't get to the N where, you know what I mean? Maybe the N is in a lower layer of the soil. That the roots of the grass can't get to. I don't know. What I may end up doing, especially because I own these meadows, what I may end up doing is knocking these down, just plowing them under, and starting again. Maybe. It's been a few years. I don't know how long. Well, no, I planted these, right? So it's been 3 years now, I think. So almost 4 years since I planted these. So it may not be a bad idea to plow this under, and plant new grass, maybe. Could just be the root structure. Could be the soil layers are not conducive to letting the roots get to the end. Because what you end up getting is leaching, where it leaches out below the roots, and it leaches out to a lower level of the soil where the roots can't get to it. So can't have that. So this soil probably could use a good, decompaction, as it were. So maybe, well, I kind of need them for this year. So maybe after the harvest is done, before we get, full hard winter, I will have a look at taking these meadows down, replanting them, and seeing if we can get the compaction down, get the end uptake back to where it's supposed to be, and get the end retention at the right level too, Probably what's going on is that, this grass, like I said, even this grass, even though it's been maintained, its entire life, the roots are probably all tangled under, in the soil, and they're trying to push down through the hard pack of the soil, and they can't. So it's probably time to take this down and redo them. The yield isn't awful in the middle of the field, as, I always expect it to be. The middle of the fields always tend to get a little more love than the ends, so. But I still wouldn't mind seeing a few more bales coming off this field. Going to be a sharp turn here. I need to start going up and down, but the problem is, because of the shape of this field, it makes it a little tricky. Yeah, I'll finish off this meadow, and then we'll call this an episode. And in the next episode, we'll be picking up all these bales, probably cutting another meadow, mowing another meadow. Meadow 9, I would imagine. And then getting that tedded up and just continue on with the cycle. That's sort of the cycle we're in now. Obviously, I have to take a look at our fields and see what they need, It's going to be another tough spring. Hopefully the harvest will, by the time we get to the harvest, we'll have the soil conditions the way we need them, and the harvest will be good. And then we can carry on that momentum going into the fall and into the winter and into the next spring. Those are all things that's all stuff that I want to take care of. I want to make sure that the soil is in good shape, always. The drought is over now for the most part, so. I wonder, I should talk to Mike and I should talk to Nick, because Mike would know and Nick would know about whether or not it's something that I can do maybe to plow up the council meadows and get those replanted as well. Obviously, that's on my nickel, right? I'm, using the diesel. I'm using the wear and tear on my tractors. I'm using the labor to plow those meadows up and to replant them. Obviously, my money to replant, for the seed and everything. I'm gonna have to ask and see if that's a thing we can do or not. Maybe get these all completely reset. You know what I mean? Give them a complete reboot, as it were. Whoops. Not paying attention, thinking about who would I have to call to see if that's a viable thing or not. Now, I said I wanted to get 6 bales off these meadows, right? And we're pretty close to that, I think. So I guess I could probably stop complaining. But I said 6, and now I'm like, well, yeah, 6 is good, but 8 would be better. Oh, nope. Gonna have to back up. Because I'm gonna hit that bale if I don't. And I can't have the damage. Oh, no, baler. Come on, baler. Cannot have the damage to the A to bales and B to the windrower, so. Okay. A couple more passes, we'll finish this up. Going to be another fairly long episode, but, baling, it takes a certain amount of time. I could go faster, but with this particular setup, it doesn't like to go too fast, so. Because what will end up happening is one or the other will clog up. The windrower or the baler will clog up. So, and then it's just getting out of the tractor and fixing that. And, why take the chance? So we have alkaline on one side of the field, slight acidity on the other side of the field. You know what? I'm not messing with it. Start putting down lime over here, and all of a sudden it becomes full alkaline, and then I'm in trouble. So. Grass does not like alkaline conditions, so it does a little better with a little bit of acidity. Obviously neutral is best, but if you're going to have one or the other, acidity is a little better than alkaline. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, so see, I got my 6 bales, right? Oh no, I got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm not. Well, I might maybe get 6. I don't know. So, yep. That's just the N again. I think these meadows are going to need a reboot. It's just that simple. Just get them reset, you know. Talk to Nick about what kind of seed I want to put down here. What's going to do the best over here. So, because I don't think I'm going to get 6 bales off of this. All right, get ready to suspend your disbelief, everybody. Going through the hedge. I have really no choice. This thing, I can't really back this thing up, just because the drawbar is so short on the baler. So. Yeah, we're not going to get 6 bales. Oh, well, okay. Grab this last bit here, and we'll call this an episode. Hopefully you guys are still enjoying this series. I know I'm still enjoying it, obviously. You know, and again, and I've said this over and over and over again, whenever you guys decide you've had enough of Old Ridge, you know, please let me know. If enough of you say, okay, that's enough, you know, I'll stop recording it. I'm not going to stop playing on it, obviously, but I will stop recording it, you know, and we'll move on to something else. You know, I've only done, 4 maps in Farming Simulator 15, and Farming Simulator 17 will be out, you know, sort of about October-ish or somewhere around there. So, but that's just because this map is so good, I enjoy it so much, that why stop playing on it? That's the way I look at it anyway. Get that up, get it folded up. Already got a screenshot, so I'm good. Yeah, 5 bales, not good. Gonna have to do something. Anyway, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. As always, let me know what you think. Again, thank you so much for coming to the channel, for liking, for commenting, for subscribing, for being my friends. You guys are all awesome. I wouldn't want to do this without you, and I'm so glad I don't have to. The fact that you guys enjoy it makes me enjoy it. There you go. I say it every video, but that's because that's what it means to me. I do consider each and every one of you friends, and thank you so much. If you're new to the channel, you saw the thumbnail, you wanted to check it out, you like what you see, make sure you click the like button and also click the subscribe button. It's the best way of being notified of when I make a video, which is pretty much every day, of some sort or another, whether it's farm sim, whether it's racing, whether it's trucking, you know, all the things that I like to do. Make sure you check me out on all the social media, too. It's in the description of every video, all the links to all my social media that I am a part of. Make sure you check out everybody on the Monkey Show approved list, too, on the main YouTube page. They're all great YouTubers. They're all friends of mine. They all make fantastic content, and they're all worth a check. Also, as always, thanks so much for being my friends, guys. That means everything to me. It really, really does. I want to make sure you guys understand how much I appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you for making me a part of your YouTube day. And this is the Bipolar Prophet saying, see you later.